We are live. Hey, Lindsay, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me back here, Emily.
Yeah, it's always great to see you. I'm excited for this this episode of the Agency Hour series. So we'll get into that in just a moment. Let people file in here. It always takes a little bit of a delay to get going on the platforms, but we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn today. So if you're watching, let us know. Say hi. We've already had a couple questions come in prior to getting started today, so I'm excited to get into this topic. With Lindsay Halsey and our Agency Hour on SEO. So the Agency Hour is presented by Quickly Hire, and it's a space for agency owners to come and learn from experts in their field. These episodes and discussions are designed to help you boost your revenue, sharpen your skills, and fuel growth in your business is the ultimate goal here. So today we are joined by Lindsay Halsey, co-founder of Pathfinder SEO. And we're going to be helping you, well, Lindsay's going to be helping you prepare for those moments when your clients ask you SEO related questions and you just don't know how to give a clear, helpful answer. So we've got a lot of them. Lindsay was just sharing some of them with me, so I'm really excited to go over these. I think it's going to be great. We've got Mark in the comments ready to learn from the best. I'm glad we're all here and we know what's about to happen, Mark. I'm with you. But first, I want to say a couple words about Quickly Hire. Quickly Hire is the fastest way to add vetted freelancers to your team. At Quickly Hire, we understand the importance of assembling top-tier talent for your business, whether you need a developer, marketer, SEO specialist, designer, virtual assistant, or any other technical creative professional, we've got you covered. So our platform, the Quickly Hire platform, connects you with highly vetted freelancers from all over the world who match your budgets and requirements, ensuring you find the perfect fit for your team. For as little as 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, it's really what you need on your budget. You set the monthly retainer, and our freelancers work with you for a set number of hours each week. That's all. We take care of all the sourcing, the vetting, the interviews, compliance, payroll, fund transfers, all that administrative headaches that go along with hiring you don't have to think about. So reach out to us at quicklyhire.com to learn more. All right, let's get to it. So today we are joined by Pathfinder SEO co-founder Lindsay Halsey. For those who don't know, Pathfinder SEO is a software that gives agencies a system to market, sell, and deliver SEO services without feeling overwhelmed. And with Pathfinder SEO, you can increase recurring revenue, you can close more sales, get closer to your clients, and empower junior team members to deliver SEO services. So it is a scalable solution too, which we love. So Lindsay, thank you for joining us today, and I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks everyone for being here today. I have a slide deck I'll start sharing here, and we will get going talking about answering client questions about SEO. And so I, on this topic, always think back to my first days as an SEO account manager, where I was tasked with talking to clients about SEO, but I was on day 1, day 2, day 3 of the job, and I really didn't know all of the answers. And so, really worried about what if a client asks a question and I don't know the answer? What if I answer incorrectly? What if I don't even know what they're asking? Like, what if I don't even understand the language and the question? And my lack of expertise is something that shines through in these early days of answering questions for clients. And I had, a lot of anxiety every time I had to get on the phone. And so if you are a web designer or a digital agency owner, and you feel like every time a client asks you a question about SEO, you sort of want to duck, or you just don't feel that level of confidence, I just want you to know you're not alone. And overcoming this, answering client questions and building confidence in this area is one of the big things that we really try to help agency owners do, because you actually are an SEO expert and you know a lot more than your clients do. And we can build this skill set so that you feel confident anytime someone asks you a question about SEO. And to overcome the anxiety, I kind of look back like, well, what did I do? How did I actually get through this period to now where asking and answering questions and interacting with clients is my favorite part of the job? And the biggest thing that I did was I learned through osmosis, and that came out of working in a digital agency. At the time, we were in a physical office space, and so I just didn't put headphones on, and I listened to the other account managers who had been there for many more months and years than I had been, and I listened to how they talked about SEO when they talked to clients, and I learned the language in that vocabulary. And so I built essentially a library or a catalog of answers, and that really helped me overcome the anxiety. The other thing that I did was just get comfortable with not knowing. SEO is a really large industry space. There's a lot to be an expert in. Sometimes clients ask you questions that require data analysis and more critical thinking. And so you're just not always going to know the answer. And so I also became comfortable with and got better at basically what to do when I didn't know the answer and how to follow up. So now that we all work, many of us work remotely, and many of us are solopreneurs. So we're working in our own office space. We don't have that opportunity as web designers and digital agency owners to learn through osmosis quite as easily. And that's really what we're here to do over the course of the next hour. And so I am going to walk you through a series of frequently asked questions and answers, and they're organized sort of within the different categories of when the questions get asked in different themes. And the first theme of questions are sales questions. And so as I go here, I'll kind of ask and answer the question. Feel free in the comments, in the chat, etc., to add more questions. And if they're not in my list, we can talk about them and answer them at the end. And then also I'll share with you this slide deck so you don't have to frantically write answers. You can try that learning through osmosis by just listening, knowing that if you want the written response and the written answers, they'll be made available to you with this slide deck. So the first sales question that we often get asked is, how are you different from other SEO agencies? And to answer this, it is going to depend a little bit about what makes your agency unique. At our agency, this is a little bit of how I might respond to that. Our commitment to consistent and clear communication sets us apart from other agencies. We take a holistic approach to SEO, which makes real-world marketing sense. During every phase of the campaign, you'll understand what we're working on and why. We'll also share monthly reports that are easy to digest so you can tie your investment to results. So really what we're trying to communicate to the client here is that we're good at communication and we're going to bring them along in this SEO journey with us. We're not going to take that approach that many agencies do, which is to say, pay us a monthly retainer. Don't worry about it. I'll send you a monthly report that you won't even understand, and we'll just be doing SEO behind the scenes for you. Just trust us. So trying to really bring them along and not make the client feel overwhelmed so that they're going to be able to understand and participate in the campaign. So having little kind of blurbs and answers like this has just really helped to build that confidence so that we can think more quickly on our feet. So think a little bit about what makes your agency unique and how you might answer it and kind of craft your plan for the next time you get asked that. We often in the sales process get also asked about, like, what should I invest in? So they're asking, should I invest in SEO or Google Ads? And clients oftentimes, or prospects in this case, they need some education in this department. They don't necessarily understand the pros and cons of the two strategies. And so they might be asking you which one they should invest in. And here's sort of how we tend to answer that. SEO and Google Ads are complementary services, each with its advantages. SEO builds your long-term marketing capital. It's something you own, and its power accumulates over time. The downside is that it's not instantaneous. Google Ads, however, is immediate. It's highly targeted. You control the budget, the geographic area, the keywords, the ad text, and more. And it's very trackable. We can tie the click to the purchase. The downside is that Google Ads only delivers value while you're spending money with Google. Many businesses find the best value in investing in SEO and Google Ads simultaneously. If that's outside your budget, we should determine which pros and cons are most important to you to help you decide where we should start. So here we're just trying to make sure that the client walks away understanding the value of the two services and how they do work together. It's not necessarily an or question. For many business, it's SEO and Google Ads, but that we can help them determine which makes sense if they have to decide between the two. So relatively straightforward. And now for the doozy question that every prospect asks, which is, when will I see results? And this one's always hard because, the answer is really, it depends. But we can get into that a little bit more for our customers. So here's how we frame this in the sales process, which is a little different than once you're working with the client, because in the sales process, you haven't done strategy and planning, and you don't know as much about their investment and what you can predict in terms of results. And so in the sales process, we go back to this concept that SEO is a long-term marketing initiative, but that doesn't mean you'll need to wait years to see results. Instead, we'll see initial results in the weeks and months after we complete the SEO setup. These results will come from our focus on quick wins. For example, dialing in your Google Maps listing and updating the keyword usage on your homepage will immediately impact your results. That said, the full value of our service accumulates over time. And so what we're trying to do here is essentially debug the myth that a client is going to have to invest in SEO for many months before they see any initial results. Because that's what a lot of SEO agencies will tell a client is, well, it's at 6 months or a year that you'll start to see results. And the reality for most businesses is they can't wait that long before getting any level of return, let alone a positive return on investment. And the reality with SEO is there are opportunities for quick wins. We can be strategic so that our initial work that comes in, some of the heavy lifting we do in kind of an initial sprint that we like to call the SEO setup, that those things have some quick wins that we can show some immediate value to the client so they don't feel like they have to wait forever before they see a return. But we still want them to understand that there is a dynamic, that the true value of the service, it snowballs and sort of accumulates over time. So this is another way to provide a little contrast in the QA part of your sales process, so that if your prospect is talking to multiple SEO agencies, you're going to sound different because the way you're answering these questions is likely to be a bit different than the average SEO company. Then folks will ask, do you offer a results guarantee? So a little different than when will I see results, but basically, if I spend X, can you promise me Y? And the answer here is that we can't offer a results guarantee with SEO. And here's a little bit of a way you can frame that. I can't promise you a specific keyword ranking or an increase in traffic. SEO is too dynamic. Google evolves, your business evolves, and your competition evolves. What I can guarantee is that our team will communicate every step of the way. We'll take a strategic and targeted approach to building your organic traffic. We'll share monthly reports that are more than just numbers. We'll include the what and the why. And so what we're trying to say here is that I can't promise you ranking number 1 for a keyword. And I can't even really be 100%, a guarantee an increase in traffic and sales, because something beyond our control can happen that makes it so that I can get you better visibility on Google and you can see a decrease in sales. A really good example of that is like when COVID started. If you had clients you were working with and you helped them in the 6 months prior to the pandemic, if you helped them get more visibility on Google, and then the rug got pulled out from under them in terms of their industry's demand, let's say they were in the travel space, then they may see a decrease in traffic and a decrease in sales or revenue in a period where their visibility on Google was even better. But they have to be smart enough marketers and business people to realize that had they not invested in SEO, they would have seen even a bigger decrease. And so we just can't be like fixed in our guarantees. Another way that you can talk through this answer is by talking a little bit about goal setting and how you might approach that. So at our agency, we set goals and then we sort of try to compare and contrast and see how we're doing up against those goals on sort of a quarterly basis. So we're looking at saying, okay, if we're looking for 20% growth, we can kind of look every quarter and say, how are we doing in terms of the growth, and compare back and understand, why are we hitting it? Why are we not hitting it? Should we raise the bar? Should we lower the expectations, etc.? So you can also get into that here to say, hey, we are going to set goals and we are going to have a target to reach. And then what we're going to do is keep kind of comparing and contrasting off that target and communicating with you about it. Another common question we get is, do you offer one-time SEO projects? I don't want to invest in monthly SEO service. So you're in the sales process. The client maybe has been burned by an SEO agency in the past on monthly, or maybe they feel really confined in their budget, and they want to know, can you work with me if I'm not willing to commit to a monthly retainer? And here's how we approach that at our agency. Yes, we can complete a one-time SEO project for your website. We offer 2 services: an SEO assessment to create the strategy and an SEO setup to build the foundation. The second project, the setup, is going to jumpstart your results. In our experience, businesses who invest in one-time SEO projects are happy in the months after our work is complete. They see an uptick in traffic and sales, and then this dissipates over time. It's a little like fitness. After getting in shape, it's easier to stay in shape with monthly maintenance than take a stop and start approach. This is why we recommend, but don't require, our monthly offering. It's structured month to month, so you aren't making a 12-month commitment. So kind of what you're trying to communicate here, what we try to communicate is, yes, you can go with just a one-time project and you're going to see a result from that one-time project. And you'll probably be happy, but that happiness might dissipate a little over time because we're not keeping our foot on the gas. We're like not going to the gym and staying consistent with that gym or fitness analogy. And then we try to reduce the size and scale of the decision by noting that we don't require a 12-month commitment, so that if they do sign on to monthly after the setup, it goes month to month in our agency dynamic, and that they can wait and decide on the monthly part until after we finish the setup and we've built that trust and that work and they've started to see results. Then they might be more willing to consider the monthly offering. We get asked, do you offer exclusive contracts? And so clients want to know, essentially, like, if I'm trying to rank #1 for, best restaurant in whatever city or whatever, will you only work with one restaurant? Will you be exclusive to a keyword space? And our response to that is, generally, we don't offer exclusive contracts in an industry or a keyword space. The success of a campaign is tied to our work, your budget, and your business's broader marketing plans. For example, if we have 2 clients in a keyword space and one is investing in PR and they naturally pick up more backlinks to their domain, then those links are going to act like votes of endorsement. They'll help build the business's domain authority. That's outside of our work scope, but does influence the results. Another example can be how different companies approach the approval process. If we have 2 clients and one approves content promptly and the other does not, then the client who approves content more quickly will likely see better results. And then we usually go back and say, is an exclusive contract important to you? If so, we can continue this conversation. We've previously offered exclusive contracts if you sign on for 2 years at one of our middle or higher level recurring plans. So there's a lot packed into this response. And the first is that we like to set the bar that we don't have exclusive contracts, and that SEO doesn't happen in a vacuum. So we can work with 2 clients in one keyword space without having essentially a conflict of interest, because there are things beyond our service offering that influence the results, like how much the client puts effort into it. Like if they're blogging, for instance, how good of a client they are, like do they approve the content? What other marketing things do they want to do? And what are they doing outside of their work with us that might positively influence organic search, since organic search really does look at more or respond well to a holistic approach to marketing. And then also there's this dynamic where not every business in a keyword space is trying to accomplish the same thing. So we work with 2 interior designers in one keyword space. One just wants a brochure website that shows up in some basic searches for their brand and their name, etc., and run a pretty simple Google Ads campaign. The other one is trying to generate, is moving quickly. They want a certain number of leads. They're all about visibility in the non-brand space. They're in a much more aggressive plan with us. And so they have two different destinations. They have two different definitions of success. It's not hard for us to work in those two different contexts, even though they're in the same keyword space. But then we flip things around and sort of turn this around and say, is it important to you? And then we let them know that, hey, if you want an exclusive contract, then I need assurance that you're going to be on for the long haul, and you have to be on one of our more aggressive plans. I wouldn't offer exclusivity to a business that's month to month on a maintenance level plan, because there's a good likelihood somebody else in their industry space could approach us. And I may end up wanting to work with them because they are willing to make a longer commitment, or they're willing to engage on a higher level plan. And so that's a little of how we handle that one. Let's talk a little bit about new websites and content management systems and questions we get asked in this sphere. And one of the biggest ones is, am I going to lose traction when I build a new website? So if a client is reasonably savvy and they have an existing website, they know that if they change and redesign, they run the risk of losing Google in the shuffle and reducing traffic. And so we like to reassure them that it's good. They're thinking about SEO as part of their website redesign. It's true that some sites see a drop in traffic from Google after a launch. That's often the case when SEO is an afterthought. Google gets lost in the shuffle when there's a lot of change, if we don't take the steps to proactively communicate that change. Our approach to SEO for website redesigns is to include an SEO setup or SEO migration, whatever you want to call it. This project ensures that the new website is set up for SEO success. An example of a key task is the creation of 301 redirects. Another is the customization of your page titles and meta descriptions. And then we talk about, let's continue this conversation. So you're kind of reassuring them that, wow, you're asking the right question at the right time and thinking ahead, and that this is a risk, but that we have a plan to mitigate that risk and actually potentially set you up for more growth and success. And then you talk about what that looks like at your agency. Is it baked into your website redesign projects? Is it an add-on service that you offer? Is it a partner you refer people to so that SEO gets included by that partner, etc.? We often get asked questions like, is WordPress good for SEO? And in this audience, everyone knows the answer to that is yes. And so, we answer this by noting that it was first and foremost a publishing platform. And so it's particularly powerful for content marketing. And then we talk a little bit about the SEO infrastructure available via multifunction SEO plugins. And this is going to mean we don't have to spend a lot of money writing any custom code to make the site SEO friendly. Our work is going to instead be in the configuration of the settings and the creation of the overall SEO strategy. So that's a pretty easy one to answer. Then we get asked, is Squarespace good for SEO? And in general, it is SEO friendly. It's simple and easy to use, which means people update their content often, and Google likes that. It's secure and reasonably fast, also important for SEO. And then we note sort of the decision-making framework, which is that if you are going to focus heavily on blogging, you might find WordPress to be a better fit. But alternatively, if your site's going to be mostly pages with some occasional blog posts, then Squarespace can be a great fit. So in general, Squarespace is good for SEO. There's reasons we like WordPress better, but oftentimes we're not deterring a client from making this choice. And then we get a lot of questions about Shopify. And this is another one where we talk about the powerful e-commerce platform with built-in SEO infrastructure. Many of the top e-commerce sites on Google are powered by Shopify. Some Shopify site owners prefer to have their store on Shopify and their blog on WordPress. And we like WordPress's blog much better than we like Shopify's blog, capabilities. But we still, generally speaking, and obviously you may need to do more research on this, but we usually recommend going all in on Shopify because it creates basically a more efficient system. And you can usually get the blog on Shopify to work well enough that it doesn't make sense to have a 2 content management system set up because of the ongoing costs there. And so we can usually go all in on Shopify. Next, we get asked a lot of questions about content marketing, things about blogs. And so this tends to be the kind of question we like to get asked when we're in the delivery of SEO service or just the delivery of any kind of ongoing service, because this is strategic, consulting, and our responses to these do have some dependence on, the context. And so a lot of times clients ask us, does a website need a blog? And so we note that a key ingredient to a successful SEO campaign is consistently creating content that serves your audience. Often this is done via a blog or a resource section on your website. Sometimes, however, we can meet Google's needs for great content by focusing on your service or product pages. During the SEO assessment, we'll review your current content and your competitors. We'll then be able to answer this question with a more definitive yes or no. So this is one of those examples where if your client is asking you this, you may not have the answer right at the tip of your tongue, right? You might have to go and do a little bit of research and understand a few dynamics before you can get back to them with something more concrete, especially if this was asked during the sales process. I know we're covering a lot of questions and a lot of responses and going relatively quickly here. And so you have the recording here, and then also you'll have these slides, and you can kind of start to see just some of the key dynamics of how we are, responding to questions that clients ask in just relatively an easygoing manner that communicates a lot of the what and the why, and doesn't always have a very concrete answer, but just gives you a little bit of a frame and tries to use language that the clients will understand. So we try to kind of explain things and not use too many SEO terms or a lot of jargon in this communication. Let's look at a few other content questions. One is, how often should I blog? And this is another one that's very strategic. And the answer is really, again, it depends. And so you have to help the client sometimes understand, well, what does it depend on? So if I can't answer the question, maybe I can give them the couple of things to be thinking about. So the best cadence for blogging depends on several factors. It includes your competitive landscape, your in-house resources for content development, and then your budget for external resources for content development by our team. For many businesses, 1 to 2 blog posts per month is appropriate. The quality and consistency, though, is more important than the quantity. So here we're kind of trying to say we're going to work with you to determine what is the best cadence for blogging for your business, knowing that yes, we would love to blog once a week, or once a month or whatever it might be, but we are resource constrained, and we want to kind of look at what does the competitive set do? What kind of blog assets do you already have? Do you have a whole, big resource center built out, in which case maybe we can blog a little less frequently? What kind of in-house capabilities does your team have? And then what's your budget for external resources? And that together, we're going to come up with a plan that hits that quality and consistency mark and sets a reasonable goal. A big one we get asked more often now is, can I use AI to generate blog posts? Or sometimes when we're talking about how many posts, and the client's like, well, I don't need your help. I'm just going to use AI to generate posts. So this should be, pretty cheap and easy for my business. And so we have to be kind of ready to express the pros and cons to using AI from a copywriting standpoint. And so our response these days to that is Google doesn't explicitly penalize websites that leverage AI to generate content. That said, search engines favor content powered by genuine expertise and experience. That's where AI falls flat. We recommend leveraging AI like a tool, like a calculator. We'll provide the strategic direction on topics and keywords, and we can leverage AI for things like creating an outline for a blog post. Then our copywriters can draft the copy and share this with you and your team to ensure it has the right brand voice and has your experience and expertise coming through. So this is sort of that answer of the shortcut of just AI can do everything for me in terms of content marketing doesn't really work. It's not that Google is using some sophisticated tool to just screen for AI generated content. It's a little deeper than that. It's basically that Google wants the content you create to be powered by genuine expertise and experience, that it's really audience first content, not SEO first content. And that most often when AI generates content, it doesn't have genuine expertise and experience behind it. And it's not always very like audience first and conversational in a way that makes it feel like you're just talking to the end user. But that said, we still leverage AI, and you can talk about some of the different ways that your team approaches or integrates with AI as an accelerator, time saver, cost saver, etc. Let's talk about questions about Google Maps. This is always a hard one because Google Maps can be like so relatively straightforward and easy, and then other times it's buggy. Google has like weird penalties or throws weird hoops towards your clients. And so you're trying to help them navigate this world that's very important to them if they are a local business, but can also be a little unpredictable in terms of what's happening. And a lot of times clients want to use a shortcut. And so one of the questions we get asked is, can I use a PO box? So clients ask this if they don't want their personal address to show on Google. For instance, I work from a home office, so don't necessarily want my personal, address on Google. So I might want to use a PO box. Other times people are asking this because maybe they live in a more rural location and their target audience is in a more, in a nearby city. And so they have a PO box in that city and they think if they use that address, it'll be better. So in short, though, Google will not show a listing with a PO box. So we have to give Google a physical address, but we can hide it in the search results. So Google only shows a service area for your business if you're worried about privacy. So with this one, you kind of are trying to get to the why are they asking it. So you figure out, oh, it's because they don't want their address out there, or, oh, it's because it's more central, and then work with them to figure out what approach will work best. The other thing we get with some clients is they actually are in a rural area and they can't get mail to their physical office in their physical listing. We still have to put that address in Google Places for Business and try to verify with it, knowing that Google might have us do video verification or some step since we can't get mail there. The other big one we get is, can I turn reviews off on my Google Maps listing? So people get afraid that they're going to get a bad review, or maybe they already have some bad reviews. And their solution to this is just like, I want a Google Maps listing, but I don't want reviews. It doesn't work like that. So we answer this, no, Google Maps listings have public reviews. If you're worried about receiving a negative review, it's really common. Often our critics are more vocal than our biggest fans. And that the most important thing with reviews on Google is just to respond publicly. Your prospective customers know that not everyone is 100% happy, and how you respond shows them what kind of a business you operate. So that's the main kind of takeaway, is that it's okay to get a couple bad reviews out there, and it's about how we respond and respect those voices out there that matters. Then folks will ask, my customers are all over the country. Is a Google Maps listing still valuable? And the answer is that most of the time, yes. A Google Maps listing is still a quick win in the world of SEO. And if you have a headquarters, we can showcase that in the Maps listings along with like a countrywide service area. But this might take a little more like strategic deep dive to determine, does Google Maps make sense for that business type? Looking at the competitive set, looking to see how often Google Maps listings even show up in the search results, for instance, in their core keyword search. But for the most part, even if your business is like Pathfinder, a software company, it still makes sense to have a Google Maps listing that's out there. And then one of my favorite ones is a shortcut around address. So people will ask, my friend, my cousin, somebody has an address in whatever city that I could use for a Google Maps listing. My business isn't located there, but can we still use this fake address as in my listing? And this can happen when businesses basically, they have a headquarters in one place, but they want to have like 5 other Google Maps listings in some of their other target areas. They're like, well, I could just borrow this address for it. Or it happens if their business isn't located in the same central area that they'd like to be in. And so they're like, well, I live in this, or my business is in the outskirts of this city, but this is a more central listing. Maybe we'll use that. And again, this shortcut is something we don't recommend. It may seem like a workaround to have a more prime address for your customer base, but Google uses more than Google Maps to determine if your business is in a specific location. There's an entire local search ecosystem that Google looks to see if your address is consistent and broadly distributed in that ecosystem. So basically, you're not going to have a lot of trust. If you just have one point of reference of this new address, basically Google's not going to trust it because they know more about the broader ecosystem. We just don't want to try to game things. And so these shortcuts or kind of strategic plays end up sort of backfiring in the long run. And really, we want to take this very honest and straightforward approach to SEO. Let's talk about frequently asked questions and answers around results. And these are probably the ones that are the most nerve-wracking and that might, create that little bit of a confidence gap feeling. And that is, clients sometimes ask, why does my competitor perform better than me for a given keyword? And so that's a totally logical question to ask. Like, you get frustrated that somebody else is outperforming you. And so in these situations, we tend to try to see if we can answer the question on the fly. So I just preface it in the beginning. Sometimes when we get into these results questions, I may not be able to just quickly formulate an answer. I might need to do a little bit of deeper research. And so what I like to do then is say, okay, in this context, if I'm quickly trying to answer this on the fly, I'm going to look at two core dynamics about the keyword space that we're in. The first thing I want to do is look and see what domain has the strongest backlink profile. So for this, I usually just kind of pop over to something that's like a public-facing tool that I can actually show the client the result of. And in this case, I might just go in and say, okay, I'm going to go in and see, well, what is the domain authority of this website? And see, okay, you have a domain rating of 57. So that's pretty strong. Out of 100, and then let's go grab a competitor to Pathfinder and drop it in. So 57 versus an 82. And so what we're basically saying here is if we were to publish the exact same content at the same time on these two websites, then this competitor has much stronger backlink network, has a stronger domain rating or domain authority that's going to help that same piece of content go further for our competitor than for us. So at an outset, it looks like the reason the competitor is outranking this example is because domain rank is higher. And so we might need to put some strategic planning into how we can increase domain, ranks, domain rating, et cetera, and build some really good backlinks. Then the other thing that I like to do is look at the second dynamic. So that's the offsite dynamic, like the strength of the website. And then the next dynamic is that the page copy is different. So we don't have the same blog post published on two sites. We have two different, blog posts or pieces of content that are ranking. So let's go look at the copy and evaluate it for length, keyword usage, quality, et cetera. So then, we go in and we actually kind of just try to take that external view and we might pull up the two pieces of content. Let's say this is the example piece of content. I like this little Chrome extension called Detail that kind of extracts some information pretty quickly. And so I can come in here and be like, okay, word count, 2,600 words. I can look at the heading structure and kind of look at some keyword usage, et cetera. I can scroll through the content and look for things like, oh, there's a YouTube video and some imagery. This is looking good, and et cetera. And do a little compare and contrast on the fly to see if you see some differentiation between the pages that are ranking for those keywords that might also signal what's going on. And so we look at these two dynamics, and then on the fly, we might be able to help the client understand why their competitor is outranking them. And then usually I'll note, hey, I'm going to further review this and I'm going to follow up over email in a certain number of days with, something more conclusive, like, yes, this is really what I think is going on. But then ultimately with our checklist of what can we do, to rise in the rankings and to compete more aggressively in this space. So this kind of approach of like, let me try to answer it and then I'll get back to you can be really great because you're showing the client like a lot of the logic and the real world thinking going in behind your answers, but then still leaving you space to dig in deeper, because sometimes you see things that are not in alignment. You walk away from this and say, well, I don't really know why. Let me go look harder. Because these top, 2 reasons or 2 dynamics don't seem to be leading me to the conclusive answer. We get asked things like, why is traffic down? So if you're working with a client on an ongoing basis in monthly SEO, hopefully you know the answer to this because you're in tune with their results from your monthly reporting. And so hopefully, that's something you can explain. But before you explain to them, your client is probably looking for a singular reason why traffic is down. And what is more likely at play in the world of SEO is that there could be multiple reasons why traffic is down. So, helping clients understand this dynamic that a decrease could come from an algorithm change, increased competition, a decrease in rankings, or a decrease in demand, like external factors, fewer people are searching. Understanding those dynamics and those big categories then allows me to present the solution that, based on my analysis and analytics and the Search Console, or based on my review of your monthly SEO report, the data signals that maybe it's a decrease in demand along with, some decreased visibility for a core keyword that are kind of creating a perfect storm. And then ultimately we want to outline, okay, then what are we going to do about it? How are we going to increase traffic again and turn this around? The other thing we get asked is, why is traffic up? And again, hopefully you know the answer, but in this case, you're just turning things on their shoulder and saying like, hey, maybe the algorithms changes, like a core update is in your favor. Maybe your rankings are better. Maybe we updated a piece of content and that's, what's to value. But having an answer as to the why and always kind of trying to understand the big picture when you're sending those monthly reports sets you up for success when you get asked this on a phone call, that you understand the key dynamics and you're not just regurgitating data, but you're saying the monthly report is the what and the when data, and the why is the part that I'm adding value by analyzing and being able to communicate that to you in a call. So those are like 25 questions that I went through lightning fast that you have access to. You probably have dozens of other questions that you can think of that clients ask you. And the answer, part of this building confidence comes from just having kind of a library of answers ready and just some systems in place for answering these questions. But we're still going to get stumped. Like 15 years into this, I still get into that place of not always being able to answer a question on the fly and having a plan. And so my plan for if I can't answer the question is first, just reassure the client that, hey, that's a good question. And I say that because I do like when people ask challenging and difficult questions. It also gives me a little bit of a moment to collect my thoughts and think about it. And it validates the client in their asking. Sometimes I then need to ask some clarifying questions. So sometimes the question is good, but it needs either more detail, or it could be helpful if it was rephrased or reframed. So I can ask clarifying questions as needed, like, hey, when did you see this? Can you rephrase the question? Can you clarify why you're asking, or whatever you might need? But just asking some follow-up questions can be really helpful. And then if I'm still at the end of that, like I just don't know the answer, then my standard response is, let me research this and get back to you. And clients respect that. It shows that you're going to invest and have deep dive, analysis, and that you're going to formulate a thoughtful response and get back to them. And that answering quickly doesn't mean that you answered the question right. So you got to kind of let that go and say, hey, I got to research this and I'll get back to you. And let them know how you're going to get back to them and when. So I'll record a little Loom video for you and I'll respond to you tomorrow with more detail. Or, hey, I'll email you tomorrow with more response. Or, this is a really good question. I'd like to do a deep dive, and I can already tell we need a follow-up call to review this together. So you can, if it's something big, it can get researched and you can get back to them. So just know that answering quickly doesn't mean properly. And if your client asks a hard question or something that requires strategic thought, it's okay to use the let me get back to you. And then a lot of times what I like to do is verbalize my thought process. So if I get asked a tough question that I can't answer right away, then let's go explore this together. And we start, using a screen share and just walking through what is my thought process on this and what are the things that I'm thinking about and what are the dynamics? Because there are oftentimes real world business dynamics that are at play, and it's great to just verbalize this as you come up with an answer. And then we have the ones, what if my answer was wrong or incomplete? And this happens a lot. And so you answer a question on the fly, and then you get off the call and you go for a little walk and you're like, oh, I totally didn't say the right thing, or I had the wrong dynamic, or whatever it is. No matter how advanced you are with delivering SEO services, this can happen. And you're on the spot when you get asked a question verbally over a phone call. And so usually what I do is I take that moment and I quickly send a follow-up email, and I just let them know I was thinking more about the question they asked, and that I dug into the data, I thought about it more, whatever it is that helped me reframe my answer. And then if I can answer it relatively promptly, I'll re-answer the question in an email. So like, hey, I answered it this way, and then I thought about it more, I got more into the data, and now I kind of am backpedaling here, and I wanna kind of reframe or share with you what I found. And then oftentimes, if it's something more substantial, I'll suggest a follow-up call. Hey, let's get on a call and talk this through together, because I'm excited, to share my thought process there. So don't panic if your answer was wrong. It's okay to change your answer. What your clients want to know is that you're like being strategic, you're thinking about them, you're being data first. So you're looking at the data in different ways and thinking things through. They don't necessarily care that on the fly you got it right or wrong. And then the big one is, how do I avoid giving away strategy? So we get asked all these questions, and sometimes we get asked questions that take us totally outside of the project scope, right? So your clients are drilling in on all these SEO questions, and you sold them a website redesign project that doesn't have any SEO baked in. Or they're starting to try to ask of you SEO related stuff and action items, but they're on a basic WordPress maintenance plan and they're not paying for ongoing SEO. So sometimes we have to be careful to not give away strategy or work product when it's not, in the realm of what's going on. And so my approach here is usually I'll share the big picture. I'll share these key dynamics and concepts, etc. And then I start to use some phrasing like, we have a project called the SEO assessment, and during that assessment, I will be able to answer this in more detail or something like that, or just starting to kind of let them know, like, when do we get into that? So if it's in the sales process, I'm like, hey, that's exactly the kind of stuff that we're going to dig into, because I can't answer this on the fly without digging into it more, and then I'll be able to get back to you. Other times we talk about how we've helped others with similar challenges and then use that to set them up with describing the project that client paid for to get help with that challenge, or just being direct. This is part of our SEO setup, or this is part of our monthly SEO plan, etc. Other technique I use is sort of answer the first question and then start holding back. So if a client asks a good initial question or two about SEO, but they're not paying for the service, I'll answer their first question or two to kind of just prove expertise and build some comfort, etc. And then I'll hold back and kind of move to having more of a sales cap type approach to things. So again, that was a lot packed in, and building confidence in talking about SEO, delivering the service, and all things under the umbrella of turning SEO services into a profitable division in your web design or freelance or agency business is all of what we do at Pathfinder. And we call it a guided approach. We have process documentation for the delivery, integrated tools, including that monthly reporting, and then a lot of community and training in our group coaching, and a lot of business resources all baked into our platform. So that's just a touch on Pathfinder. If this has been helpful to you and you want to hang out with other folks also delivering SEO services and developing their processes, join us over on the Pathfinder side. And I have my contact information. So if you have a question that didn't get answered here, feel free to email me the question. We'll bake it into the slide deck for the next time I do this talk. But also, I'm happy to answer it for you. And Emily, if folks have questions, comments, or anything you want to add in here, I'd be happy to take those ones live.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I loved that presentation. So direct, succinct, practical, which is always great, right? So a lot of takeaways. I've shared the link to your deck in the comments, both on YouTube and LinkedIn. So everyone who's watching, or if you're watching this recording, you should be able to see that. So thank you for sharing that as well. One quick question that came through was, what was the name of the extension you had mentioned before?
Yeah, so the extension that I like is called Detailed, and it just makes it really easy to showcase things to clients. And let me see, Detailed Chrome extension. So here it is. And yeah, it's just like a quick little like SEO extractor that makes it easier to dig into something in front of a client and use some logic when you're answering things.
Awesome. And I'm putting that in the chat. Extension. Great. And we did have a question that came in earlier. Let me go back up to the top. So this is something that happened to one of the folks watching today. They had a client that was asking about tracking form submissions on their website. So, and that person found themselves down a rabbit hole trying to get their head wrapped around Google Tag Manager and event tracking in GA4. So how would you answer those questions?
So the first thing when people ask me questions with Google Analytics or is like, Google Analytics is challenging. And yes, we can often get the tracking they're looking for. So in this case, the client has a lead generating form on their website, and it seems totally reasonable, is one of the things that they would want to be able to connect the dots of how often is that form getting completed and what traffic sources are leading to those leads, et cetera. And so, you know, from an answer question, I would say, yes, let us look into getting that. It's called key event tracking set up for you in Google Analytics. Then behind the scenes, not on the fly, not on the phone with a call, you have to go figure out how to actually do that. And that's not always easy. And if you don't know how to do that in analytics, there are a couple of kind of ways that you might do it. One way you can do it without ever using Tag Manager is to set up the client's form so that they land on a thank you page instead of having a little redirect message. So if it lands on thank you -contact page or something, and it says on that page, thanks for completing our form, then in Google Analytics, without using Tag Manager, you can create a custom event and tag it as a key event for page views of the thank you page. So you never have to touch Tag Manager, which is nice. The other thing, if you install Google Analytics on a client's website using a plugin like Monsters Insights, it sometimes comes with some of that form tracking built in. And again, you don't have to turn over to Tag Manager because once you go to Tag Manager, you're going to have to level up your skill set in terms of the implementation. So those are a couple things to consider that keep you all in the GA interface doing this work. The other thing that you can go then and say is, okay, then maybe I can Google the name of the plugin you use to create the form and Google Analytics 4 and see what help documentation is out there and see if you can follow that. So like we use ConvertKit for a lot of our forms. And so we had to go and Google like how to get ConvertKit to form tracking to work in Google Analytics 4 and follow some help documentation that was out there because it's a little different than when we use Gravity Forms or something like that. And then you might find yourself saying, well, I got to go over and use Google Tag Manager and I've got to go kind of build that skill set and build some conversions in there. And I could do like an hour training, and Emily, maybe it's a good topic for us to weave in there because it's just it's a skills training basically around, okay, how do I get this relatively basic data, conversion data, into Google Analytics because Google didn't really make it easy. So that's how I answer it for the client. And then that's a little bit of how I approach it behind the scenes. But again, I'd put it high on the list of things. If you're finding it frustrating, you're not alone, and Google didn't make it easy, and kind of keeps us in business. Another one to make sure the client is somehow paying you for this work of getting it in analytics, because you're leveling up their analytics. It's not a basic install. You're doing something custom for them that has a lot of value.
Yeah, and it's so important, right? Because it weaves in with SEO, because having that attribution and conversion tracking can show the value of it as well. So getting that set up is essential too. So that's a really good question, and a really big pain point for a lot of people, like you said.
It is. And we have lessons in Pathfinder for all the scenarios. Like if you want to track clicks on an email address, clicks on a form, clicks on a phone number, views of a page, basically all these like individual skills that you want to build. Because it is an analytics skill, but you need it for SEO. So it's all included in Pathfinder too as little lessons, but you can Google a lot of this stuff too. Once you kind of understand that frame of like, what can you do in Google Analytics and what requires Tag Manager.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay. Great question also. That same person asked a question about, a lot of their clients are small businesses, startups, low budget. They have maybe in the past hired low quality SEO specialists from Fiverr or Upwork or something like that, and convince themselves that, hey, we've spent money on this, it doesn't work. They've had their fingers burned, as this person says, and it's hard for them to build that trust. So what would you say to those clients or potential clients?
So that's really common, right? You get into a sales call, or maybe you have an existing web design client and they've been burned and you're trying to kind of get them on board with your services. And the first thing I try to reassure them is that I understand where they're coming from, that I don't think they're crazy, right? So, and I kind of am like, it's hard being in an industry space where the quality of the delivered service ranges from such low bar and a poor experience to some really great agencies out there that do a great job. And that I just reassure them that they're not alone, and that I understand that, hey, you might be reluctant to reinvest in SEO services. I would be if I were in your shoes. And that's just going to get some head nodding of them feeling like you're not pointing the finger at them for being a bad client, or, kind of like, oh, you get what you pay for kind of attitude. You understand, and that it's easy to fall, unfortunately, into this trap. And then I let them know how we approach SEO a little differently, and what it's like, and that, hey, I get that it's hard to reinvest. What I recommend we do is we don't commit to some big SEO investment. Why don't we go and do the SEO assessment? It's a on-ramp project. It's small. It's in a short period of time. It's going to let us go and look at like, well, what value have you built? Where are the opportunities? And build a strategic plan. And then we can determine how you want to execute that plan, if you want to at all, and what that investment looks like. So get them to walk before they run, and build trust working with you. And don't try to sell them a $1,200 a month monthly plan, because they're not going to sign on that dotted line. Sell them something small, build trust. Go help them get a quick win would be another one. Like, go help them fix their Google Maps listing and do a couple quick wins. Get in there with them on something that's in the hundreds, like AKA under $1,000 project, that only takes a couple hours, so that you can show them the value of working with you and regain and rebuild that trust, and let them know you're in their court. Like, hey, if I get in there and I find I don't think SEO is a good fit for your agency or for your business, then what we can talk about other strategies. Maybe we'll recommend investing in Google Ads instead and trying something different. But more likely than not, we're going to find value in investing in SEO services. We just need to do it a way that's budget-minded, focused, real world, and you're going to be able to come along with the journey and feel in total control.
Yeah, really good advice there. And then just to wrap things up, Lindsay, because we're coming up on time here. And again, if you're watching this or you're watching the recording and you have questions for Lindsay, we'll be live again with her next month. So just tune in, subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe and you'll be notified of upcoming episodes. So stay tuned, and you can put comments on here, and we'll bring those into the next series. But just to wrap things up, remind us, what is that formula when you get an SEO question or you get a question from a client and you don't have an answer? How can you answer?
So the first is don't panic. You're not alone. And when you answer, I just start with, that's a great question. Even though in my head, I'm thinking, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know the answer to this. Then the next phrase is, did you understand the question? Was it a well-framed question? If not, you can ask them to repeat it, ask them to provide more context, more detail, etc. Ask a probing follow-up question. So that can be the next thing to do. And then if you don't know the answer, you can just use the good old phrase, let me look into this and get back to you. And those are kind of the three parts to the system. Good question, reframe or re-ask, ask qualifiers, and then let me get back to you. One of the number one reasons why you won't be able to answer a client's question is because the question might be a good question, but they may have asked it in a confusing way. Like one time I was asked a question by a client and they used, instead of calling it SEO, they called it CO. And so my response was like, I don't know what CO is. Like I don't even know what they're looking. And I'm frantically trying to search behind the scenes on Google to figure out what they're talking about. And it was just like a language jargon kind of situation. And so, again, you can always just get back to folks. You're not expected to know everything about the world of SEO and answer every question right there on the fly.
Absolutely. Great lesson to remember. Good formula to have at the ready. So you can always whip that out when you need it. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you to everyone who joined us live. Stay subscribed, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, follow us. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe so you can come to the next ones, and we will be back next month. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lindsay. Have a great afternoon. Bye.